lying liars are gonna lie. And here are some cruise lines that kind of drive me crazy. Have you ever heard someone say that cruising is just for old people, or that it's super boring being stuck on a ship for days? Well, what if I told you that some of the most widely believed truths about cruising are actually completely, utterly, and sometimes hilariously wrong? In fact, clinging to these outdated lies or notions could be costing you the vacation of a lifetime, or even worse, leading you to make some really expensive mistakes. Now, stick around because by the end of this video, you'll uncover the surprising realities behind 5 of the most pervasive cruise lies, or myths, we'll call it something a little nicer, including one common belief about what's included that can drain your wallet faster than a rogue wave. Hi, I'm Melissa, a university professor who loves to cruise and who loves to talk ship. And today, we're gonna set the record straight. Full disclosure, I love cruising, obviously. This is a whole channel literally dedicated to cruising. But I want to talk about these things in a way that's very honest. So let's dive in with our first lie, one that often keeps potential cruisers from even considering taking a cruise. Lie number 1, cruises are only for old people, or sometimes newlyweds or families with young kids. Now, this is a perception that makes many people chuckle, painting cruising as an experience just for retirees. But there is a surprising reality that most people never consider, a truth that totally redefines who a cruise is really for, and it just might change your entire perspective on taking a vacation at sea. So is it true that cruising is just for old people? Absolutely not. Now, the reality is we have demographic data that tell us, yes, the average age of a cruiser is a little bit older. And there are certain ships and itineraries and cruise lines that might lean towards one demographic, being an older demographic, but the vast majority of contemporary or mainstream cruises today, they're actually designed to appeal to a diverse range of ages and interests. Now, the average age of a cruise passenger is around 46, which I find to be very young. And while this provides an overall view, though, it's important to note that the average age can vary significantly by cruise line. For example, Holland America Line and Princess, that's going to be an older crowd, averaging between 55 and 72. On the other hand, Carnival appeals to a younger demographic. They get more kids, so that's early 40s on average by the time you weigh it all out with all of the cruisers. So think about it like this. Contemporary cruise lines, they're like floating cities. They have dedicated spaces and activities for every age group. So whether you're a solo traveler in your 30s who wants to turn up and party, there's something for you on most cruise lines. If you have families with kids, you want that free childcare to get those kids out of your hair for a little bit, you got that too. If you are an older retiree who wants to see the world, but without having to take 50 different flights and have to walk a whole lot, you can do that too. If you're in your 20s and you want adventures, ziplining, surfing simulators, and big entertainment shows, you got that too. So that's the great thing about cruising. It literally has something for everyone. So even if you're cruising with a multi-generational family, I'm getting ready to take a cruise with my entire family, ranging from 6 years old to 60s, and there's something for everyone. I know that nobody is going to get bored. Now, the key here is to understanding not cruising is for old people, but the different nuances and vibes of the different cruise lines and even the different ships or itineraries within that same line. For example, I told you Holland America Line definitely skews older, but that's going to be more so the case on their European or their really long sailings. Their shorter sailings in the Caribbean, going to be much younger than the average Holland cruise age. So research is your best friend, but please don't dismiss cruising completely just because you have this idea or you hear people talk smack about it saying, oh, it's just for old people, because you might be surprised to find your perfect vacation at sea. And you might be surprised at how daggone much fun it is. And if you are younger and you do love fun and you do like a party vibe, Royal Caribbean and Carnival is going to deliver, and many other lines too, like MSC. Coming up next, let's tackle the lie that could really put a damper on your vacation budget if you're not prepared. Many people believe that once you're on board, you're on the cruise ship, it's all inclusive, because that's the perk of cruising, right? It's all inclusive, but is that actually the case? Well, you might get some unpleasant sticker shock at some of the hidden costs that can add up faster than you can say bon voyage. This is one of those classic misconceptions that if you are a newer cruiser and if you believe it, could lead to some shock when you get your final bill. And again, that's that idea that everything is included. And that is a pervasive myth about cruising. And again, I love cruising. I love that it is mostly all-inclusive, but it's important to understand what is actually included in all-inclusive versus what's extra. That's important because you don't want to end up with surprises and you don't want to end up overspending. So what is included on a cruise? The base cruise fare typically covers your accommodation. So it's like your hotel room. It's your room, but it's also meals, but not all meals, but most of them. They have meals in the main dining room or MDR, meals in the buffet, basic beverages like water, tea, and coffee, and those things are generally included. Now, some cruise lines like Virgin Voyages stand out because they include a few more things, like soft drinks and gratuity. Those actually are included. But for most of the cruise lines, those are the things that you get and that you don't get. Cruise lines also have built-in entertainment, and that's a big perk. You don't have to go out and find what shows you want to watch or things you want to do at nighttime and have to buy tickets and plan and get there and pay for it, but it's provided and included in the cruise fare. So what are some of these common extra costs? Well, alcohol. Alcohol is probably one of the biggest cruise expenses if you are a drinker. Thankfully, I'm not a drinker, but that can really add up. And there are drink packages that can sometimes make this cheaper, but you have to do the calculation of how much you're going to drink to see if it actually is a good deal for you and your specific needs and circumstances. Other things like soda. Me, I'm a coffee drinker. I love my specialty coffees, and that can add up because that's not included. Fresh squeezed juices, smoothies, milkshakes, wine, and beer. All these things are generally going to cost you extra. And there are, again, often drink packages, not just for the alcohol beverages, but sometimes there are bubbles packages just for soft drinks and juices and things like that. But those are almost always coming at an additional separate cost. There also are specialty restaurants. Now, there's tons of free dining. You're never going to go hungry on a cruise, and you don't have to pay for food ever on a cruise if you don't want to, in general, if you want to eat. But if you want specialty dining, most ships have specialty restaurants offering you unique or more upscale experiences and cuisines, of course, for an extra fee. Now, trust me, some of them are absolutely worth it. I love a good steakhouse. Most of the cruise line steakhouses are actually a really good deal for what you get, and the food is really good. So on almost every cruise, I'm going to splurge for a specialty steakhouse dinner. I think it's worth it, but it's not for everybody. So be aware of that extra cost as well. Another are shore excursions. Now, sometimes you take a cruise where it calls upon a cruise line private island, like Princess Cays, Half Moon Cay, Ocean Cay, Perfect Day at Coco Cay. That's a free beach day. Although, of course, they're always going to try to sell you stuff, but that's a free beach day. It's truly free. But in a lot of other ports of call, there's maybe not a lot to do there at the port. So cruise lines will try to sell you shore excursions. And exploring ports, well, that's the highlight. That's for most of us why we cruise. It's fun being on the ship, but getting out at port and exploring the world, that's the real highlight. But those guided tours and those activities that you book, either through the cruise line or independently on your own, that's going to be an additional cost. Another are spa treatments and salon services. And some cruise lines are pretty aggressive in trying to sell you these things. That can be things like massages, facials, hairstyling, even Botox. These are services that are luxury services, and of course they come with a price tag. Now this one surprises a lot of newer cruisers, and that's gratuities. As I mentioned, some cruise lines, mostly just Virgin, they include gratuities, but most of the other lines add daily gratuities to your onboard account to go to the crew. Now, they call this prepaid gratuities because a lot of times people pay this in advance when they book their cruise. I personally don't prepay mine. I just pay it at the end of my cruise. Either way, that is something that is not included in that standard cruise fare. Also, internet access. Virgin Voyages includes basic internet for free, but if you want premium, you'll have to pay. But Wi-Fi on almost every other cruise line is going to cost you money. And it can be pricey, usually a couple $100 for even a 6 to 8 day cruise. And if you want the premium, if you need it like I do for work, because I often work on a cruise because I cruise monthly and I teach online, I do need that premium, and that can get pretty pricey. It can get pretty expensive. And of course, other activities. The casino, although the casino is an investment. And if you're interested in learning how to earn free cruises by spending money in the casino, I have a free guide down in the comments. Check that out. But if you want to play bingo or other games of chance, those are purely for entertainment, and they're going to operate on a pay-to-play basis. And of course, retail purchases, stuff you buy. Signature photos, they always have photo ops set up where you get your photo taken. They always look really nice, but they're expensive. Souvenirs, duty-free shopping, any clothes, anything that you buy either on the ship, in those gift shops, or at port, obviously it's going to cost more. And medical services. If you have to visit the onboard infirmary, there's always going to be a charge. And oftentimes your health insurance doesn't cover it. And this is why I always recommend travel insurance. I have a whole guide explaining all about it if you're curious about it and what's covered and what's not covered. And I will tell you from experience, I ended up in the med center on a cruise a few months ago for the flu. My bill was $533, and thankfully I had an annual travel insurance plan and it paid it in full in less than a week after I got home. So it's a small upfront investment. You can do an annual plan to save on all trips throughout the year. That's what I do. And it can save you from a massive headache and a massive bill later. So always consider that as well, and don't assume your health insurance is going to cover you. Now, if you are frugal and you decide not to spend money on these things, you can get away with pretty much just the cruise fare, other than the gratuities. That's included. You don't really have control over that. But don't let those other unexpected costs derail your vacation budget. So always make sure you go into it knowing what's included and what is not included. Next, let's talk about something that makes many people nervous. And I just told you, I got the flu recently on a cruise. I had to go to the med center. And that's the idea that cruises are floating petri dishes. And okay, there is some truth to this. You are probably more prone, there's not like there's scientific studies, but you are probably more prone to get sick on a cruise ship than you are on land vacation. Because think about it, you got thousands of people in a contained space with the same ventilation, sharing the space for several days. So I personally got lucky. I had a track record of 33 cruises, never getting sick, and then I got the flu twice on my last 3 cruises. One where I ended up in the med center, as I mentioned. So you can get sick on a cruise, but it's not like you're guaranteed to get sick on a cruise. And there are things that you can do to help make sure you don't get sick. Now, I do a lot of these things. I still got sick. So none of them, of course, are foolproof, but there are things you can do to mitigate it. That includes bringing Clorox wipes and wiping off your vent, obviously hand washing. It would actually appall you if you looked at the buffet on any cruise ship and you saw how many people got food from the buffet without washing their hands. So that's why I avoid cruise ship buffets in general. But in general, if you get sick on a ship, it's gonna be something minor like a cold. Even the flu, it was very inconvenient and uncomfortable, but I survived. It wasn't the end of the world. And sometimes on cruise ships, you do get outbreaks of things like norovirus, which is spread very easily and does tend to be more prone to happening on a cruise ship. That's why washing your hands is very, very, very important. But is it a guarantee that if you go on a cruise, you're gonna get sick, you're gonna get norovirus, you're gonna be on the toilet for the next 3 days? The answer is no, absolutely not. Outbreaks and illnesses obviously can happen. They are a little more likely to happen on a cruise ship, but it's not a guarantee. As I mentioned, I went on a whole lot of cruises, never so much as got even a common cold until recently, but this is a pervasive myth that I hear a lot. And again, regardless of how healthy or young you are, always travel with insurance. You never know what's gonna happen. Information on that is below. Now let's move on to what I think is probably the biggest lie I hear about cruising, and that is that cruising is boring. People who say that clearly have never been on a cruise. So is it true that you'll be stuck with nothing to do but staring at the ocean and you're out to sea with like literally nothing to do? No. If you've never taken a cruise, you will be amazed at the incredible variety of things there are to do on a ship. This is such an old, outdated notion. Now, sometimes too, I hear this from people that have taken a cruise, but like in the 90s, it's very, very, very different now. And in this day and age, cruise lines are going bigger and bigger with their cruise ships. So you're definitely not gonna be bored on a mega ship where they go all out with all the bells and the whistles. You're gonna find IMAX theaters, really fancy water slides, rope courses, roller coasters, these little things that swing out over the ocean to give you some adrenaline thrill, rock climbing walls, surf simulators, go-kart tracks. I mean, there's literally all of these things to do on some of these ships. They also have world-class entertainment. I love Broadway, so a lot of them have Broadway-style shows. Not as long as like a 2-hour plus show, usually like a 45-minute adaptation, but still very entertaining. Royal Caribbean emphasizes ice skating. There are acrobatics, comedy clubs, Virgin Voyages does drag shows. There's something for everyone on these cruises. There's also educational and enrichment programs. There are certain lines that excel at this. Holland America Line really emphasizes this. So if you like things like lectures on indigenous cultures, cooking classes, origami folding lessons, I've done that before, wine tastings, and even language lessons, you can sometimes find that on a cruise. There's also lots of opportunities just to relax. If you don't want that constant activity, you're not looking for that adrenaline on board, almost every cruise ship is decked out with luxurious spas. They also have state-of-the-art fitness centers, they offer yoga classes, morning stretch classes, and there are often lots of pools, although they are generally pretty small, but they have lots of pools and hot tubs. A lot of cruise ships also have casinos, which I love, and if you want to learn about how to cruise free on casino offers, I have a guide. I'll drop the link below. They also have nightclubs. If you like the club, you like to dance, you like to turn up, cruise on Carnival. That club goes until 2 o'clock in the morning. There are themed parties, there's shopping, there's even sports and recreation like basketball courts, soccer. I've done a cornhole tournament on a cruise before. So there's literally just like this endless list of things that you can do on a cruise. So if someone says they're bored on a cruise, well, you got a problem because there's lots to do. And this is every day. It's not just on sea days. Even on port days, there are activities to do. Even trivia, they offer that almost every single night. Dueling pianos, just so many comedians, so many things. It truly does seem endless. And I promise you, on a cruise, you're not ever gonna be bored. Now let's talk about a lie that prevents a lot of people from ever even looking at or shopping or getting pricing for a cruise. And that is that it is incredibly expensive, luxurious, or only for the wealthy. Now, is cruising truly a luxury? Well, I feel like it's a luxury, but you get to ball on a budget, and that's what makes it so great. So, this is a lie that often comes from these superficial glances. Cruise line commercials always make it seem like people are like in their ball gowns and they're in the casino playing craps, and look how fancy and elegant they are. And that can be part of cruise culture because there are elegant nights on cruises. You don't have to dress up, you don't have to go to the main dining room that night. You don't have to wear a ball gown and a tux, but you can. So those things are present sometimes on cruise ships, but you can also schlep around in your shorts and your flip-flops if you want. That's okay too. You just can't go to the main dining room necessarily. So they're not necessarily these luxurious experiences. That's just what they show you in the advertising. Now, some cruise lines do tend to be a lot more upscale, like Cunard. That is a luxury cruise line. But a lot of the contemporary cruise lines, it is come as you are and go as you want. And that's reflected in the price point. And in fact, I love doing some cruise math where you actually take the cost of what a land vacation would cost, looking at the hotel cost, food costs, which right now are just astronomical, your transportation cost, every night trying to find something to do and then arranging that and getting there and buying the tickets. You don't have to do that on a cruise. That's all baked in, most of it, as we've discussed. But that's built in, that's done for you. It's already there. So you're saving not just money, but you're saving on time. And typically on an apples to apples comparison, even comparing a cruise to an all-inclusive, a lot of times it'll probably surprise you that the cruise oftentimes comes out as the more affordable option. So there is still this lingering perception that cruising is high cost or it's luxury, but it can actually be the cheapest way to travel. And that's actually why I got into cruising, is because I like to ball on a budget and I saw it as a real value proposition. Now, here are some ways you can save on a cruise if you are on a budget. Book strategically, so booking out really far in advance, like 12 to 15 months, or last minute if you're flexible. That can find you some significant savings. Also, being willing to take an inside stateroom cabin. These are going to be your most affordable. I personally don't mind interior rooms most of the time. Also, use a travel agent. I have my information below. I am a travel agent. You can also become a travel agent if you want to book and save on your own travel. All that information is below. But having a travel agent costs you nothing, but travel agents can help you find the best deals and the best promotions to help you save on your cruise. And loyalty programs. Once you start cruising, if you're loyal to a specific cruise line, sometimes you can get perks like free laundry service. If you play in the casino, again, I have a guide below that tells you how to do this. You might even get offers for free cruises. That's what I do. So cruising doesn't have to be expensive. And in fact, the number one question people ask me is, how on earth do you cruise every single month? I cruise for free. Well, not for free. I spend a lot of money in the casino, but technically my cruise fare is free. And I'll tell you how to do that too if you want to know. So don't let the potential for sticker shock scare you. And if you run prices, don't let that initial price scare you, because that includes usually gratuities, taxes, port fees, everything. So if you're looking at that, you're comparing it to an all-inclusive or a land-based vacation, you have to factor in all those other costs too, like food, entertainment, any tips that you might give to the crew. All of those things you have to do to get an apples to apples comparison. So I want to know, what popular cruise lies or myths have you heard that drive you crazy? And if people want to talk ship about cruising, I don't mind as long as they've actually taken a cruise. But when I hear this stuff from people who've never stepped foot on a ship, it makes me want to pull my hair out. So I want to know what things you hear, what things you think are total BS. Now, the biggest takeaway here, don't let outdated or misinformed notions prevent you from experiencing the magic of a cruise, because I tell you, cruising tends to be love it or hate it. I do know some people that have cruised, they had a bad experience, they said, I never want to step foot on a cruise ship again. That happens, but that is the minority. The vast majority of people love it. You get bitten by the cruise bug. Obviously I did, which is now why I make cruise content, and hopefully you will fall in love with cruising too. And if you do, or if you already do love cruising, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and check out my website at profmelissa.com, where you'll find all kinds of cruise information.